Round 2 of Blue Squadron Best in Guild EU tournament has just finished, so here are all the results. This round we had the first live showcase of some of the top PvP guilds in EU, but did they deliver the top performance or were there upsets? Let's find out. First match was Sinnoh vs Call Me Daddy. It started just like everyone had expected. Sinnoh wasn't playing around and completely dominated the whole match from start to finish. Call Me Daddy had a few caps, but were quickly shut down. At the end, Call Me Daddy at least had some fun as they tried to storm the point and morphed into basilisks. Next up was Elder vs Reborn. The match started fairly equal, but Reborn managed to grab the first cap and held it until the end, fully dominating the leaderboards and point defense. Elder had a few sneaky caps, but they were quickly shut down. Moving on to Greed vs Hafenzinger. Another match that started off fairly equal, but it ended up being fully dominated by Greed. Getting their early cap and never letting Hafen come even close, it was a pretty one-sided for the most part. Next up was Delusive vs Clowns. Very equal fight for a few minutes, but Delusive was able to hold the point convincingly and cap it. Clowns had several great pushes where it looked like the Delusive frontline was crumbling, but they managed to reinforce it and held strong until the end. Towards the end it looked like a one-sided fight which the leaderboard reflects, but it was much closer than that. TrollOnlyFans vs Frog Voe was up next. The match that was predicted by many to be a one-sided win for Frog had gone to be quite an interesting one. TrollOnlyFans was able to push Frog off the point, completely dominating it and capping. They managed to hold it for over 5 minutes, then Frog flipped the point and held it until the end, dominating the flanks, dominating the point defense and winning the match with the leaderboard showcasing it. Next was Xmark vs Pirate Gaming. Pirates were dropping in strong, but Xmark ended up completely dominating the first 5 minutes. They got the early cap, and despite a few really nice flanks and pushes from Pirates, it just simply wasn't enough to break the Xmark frontline. Pirates did manage to get a few caps, but Xmark dominating the leaderboard shows everything. Hot Grills vs Chaos F was up next, and it was a complete domination from start to finish by Hot Grills. There were a few skirmishes where they pushed Chaos F completely off the map. Chaos F barely had a chance to get even close to the point, and the leaderboard shows up how much dominance Hot Grills managed to pull in that match. Disaster Death vs For Glory was the final match of Day 1 Round 2, and it started just as you would expect it. For Glory was nowhere to be seen for the first minutes, as it was an AFK standoff. They had an interesting strategy to try to rush the point as soon as it opened. It looked like it might work, but Disaster had cleaned off the point, capped it and held it until the end, dominating the match and the leaderboard. First match of Day 2 was Orca vs Chaos X. It started off with Orca dominating to Orca capping first and Orca holding it until the end with complete domination. One of the guilds that is hard contender for winning the whole thing, so the domination was expected. Ethereum Reapers vs Shin Noodles was up next, and it was the first, let's call it somewhat equal match, with several back and forths, high percentage contribution caps, but in the end Ethereum Reapers were able to grab the first cap and defend it multiple times. It wasn't fully dominated by the winner like some of the other matches, but it was the most entertaining one. Next up was KDS Red vs Failure. The chat support was much stronger in favor of KDS Red, where Failure was called the PvE guild, so I guess they took that personal and absolutely obliterated KDS Red from start to finish. I have never seen such a dominant performance in a 48 vs 48 GVG, and an even more dominant after seeing that Krix had 136 kills, 320 assists and 4.9 million damage. Absolutely insane performance from Failure. Sovereign vs Visceral was another very equal match from start to finish. For the first 7 minutes, both guilds had equal cap contribution, but Visceral was able to take the first one. Sovereign didn't want to let it go, so they kept attempting to flip the point the whole time, getting really close towards the end, but unfortunately there was not enough time left and Visceral took the hard-earned victory. The match was much more equal than the leaderboard suggests. Hand of Unity vs Royal Legion was an absolute dominance from start to finish by Hand of Unity, completely pushing off Royal Legion back to their spawns and not even allowing them to get in the area where the point is. Very expected performance by Hand of Unity, as they are one of the few contenders to win the whole tournament. Pain vs Vikings on Shroom looked like it would be an equal fight, but it ended up being much more in favor of Pain, who got the first cap and never dropped it until the end. The Vikings had a few nice pushes and attempts to try and flip the point, but Pain held strong and kept it, with the leaderboard showing dominance. Unleash vs Rollout was played on the absolute worst and one-sided Malakar Riftstone. It's pretty much impossible to push through properly, and Unleash was the first guild that managed to grab the position at the point. They forgot to cap the point for the first 10 minutes, but it wasn't really the problem since Rollout couldn't capitalize on some of the nice pushes they had. Leaderboard showed the domination from Unleash. And the final match of round 2 was Hype vs Tempest. The match started out pretty strong from both sides holding their own. The cap was very equal and it was just a matter of few player difference on the point. But Hype was able to cap the first point, with Tempest instantly starting the recap. They kept the contribution at around 20 to 30% for the whole match, but with the last 5 minutes Tempest was able to rally their players and double the amount of players on the point, reaching 60% contribution. But Hype was able to bring it back, defend the point and claim the hard-fought victory. And this pretty much covers round 2 of the biggest EU tournament. Here is the bracket, and the next round is going to be super fun to watch, with some big guilds fighting against one another. If you missed the livestream, you can watch the VOD at twitch.tv/blue_squadron. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.